And what I was saying before is I don't have selection sets, and what I use selection sets for is a couple of things. The first thing I'll do when I start texturing is I want to start throwing down some base colors. If we look at the concept, there's some pretty obvious sort of solid base color regions here that I'll need to sort of throw down in my texture to begin with. We've got this sort of soft purple, velvety type fabric. We have the gold, metallic stuff everywhere. We have sort of purple gems. We have an eye. We have fur. A nose. So it's I'll put dots on it. What I'm doing here is, these are kind of like the material types that we need to think about. And by creating selection sets, not only will we be able to sort of solid fill these regions in our texture, but it'll also help us create like a quick and dirty spec map, because we have these sort of material type regions already selected. That's going to help us a lot to get a quick spec map, which you'll see soon. And I think we talked about this in maybe lesson 1 or 2, just sort of like identifying the sort of different material types and things in your model that you need. And I mentioned the nose before, and that's the reason I mention that is it's going to have a different specularity to the fur, just like the eye will have a different specularity to the fur, the gem will have a different specularity. Like all these different material types are all going to behave differently in relation to light and things like that. So you kind of need to split them up and be aware of the different types. Different types of surfaces on your model. And this also relates to what I was talking about in lesson 1, where maybe you have some like human skin, and that's going to actually dictate that you'll need maybe a subsurface scattering shader. We won't need that in this model, but that sort of triggers that I am going to have to create an additional subsurface subsurface scattering set of maps to control that effect in the shader. So being aware of the different material types will sort of dictate the types of materials and maps that you need to create in Photoshop for your 3D shader. So maybe, yeah, maybe this guy had a whole bunch of glows on him, which he doesn't, but if he had glow, we'd need to create an emissive map for the areas that would be glowing. Same with things like, yeah, skin and all that jazz. Okay. So let's get into creating these selection sets. Okay. And the stage is kind of boring as well, but you'll have to bear with me. But it's basically just, and I'll be rough. I won't spend a lot of time making it super perfect just because of the sake of time. But yeah, it's basically just selecting each different region. Probably a faster way to do this would have been to bake out polypaint data from ZBrush. You can sort of just flood fill each material type in ZBrush and just bake that polypaint data. That way, when you create your maps in XNormal and you bake the polypaint data, instead of actually baking the sort of polypainted texture, you're actually baking a selection set as opposed to like a nice pretty texture you painted, and that'll give you like a quick set of masks to pull from. now would also be a good time if you have any questions on anything we just discussed.
No questions yet, but let us know, guys.
Yeah, so you even have to go in and separate things like clause because they're going to have a different specularity. You might need to select them later for whatever reason.
Let's see. Julius is asking, what was the software to make cavity maps, and is it free or does it cost millions?
Only your soul.
It's worth it.
It was called Crazy Bump, and I think it's pretty cheap. Yeah, $100 or something. There's a free trial. I think it's like a 30-day trial as well. And I even think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but like you might even be able to like render out a cavity map from something like Ndo or Ddo if you have that. I know it creates a whole bunch of different maps. So maybe you could sort of extract one from there, maybe? I'm not sure if you already have that software. It's the moon.
I think XNormals has a normal map to cavity map converter, but I don't know how good it is. But that's free, so might be worth a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, is that like it's like a script in Photoshop?
It's part of the tools in XNormals. So you just
Okay,
like
yep.
load it in and it works its magic. But yeah, I think, and there also are
Yep.
scripts out there, I'm pretty sure too. So if you look on like Polycount, you might be able to find something.
Yeah, there is a Photoshop action that does it, which is free if you can find it. I'm just not sure where it is on the internet. It's probably on Polycount, like you said, Lewis. And yeah, XNormal will actually render a cavity map. It's like one of the options you can choose under where you choose like your normal map or your ambient occlusion. There's one that says cavity, and you can tick and choose that. The reason why I don't render one out from XNormal is I find the result is a little unappealing, and it also takes forever to render. So in terms of speeding up workflow, I just use Crazy Bump. It's less render time. Okay, so we have a try and blast through this. The color doesn't really matter at this stage. Doesn't really matter. It's more about the selection set where you can like control click and it'll select the region you need. Control click. It's like quick highlighting, which is pretty handy. Okay, so we have purple region. Yeah, it's not the most fun stage. You can definitely, as I was saying, speed this up by rendering out something from ZBrush. But sometimes that gets pretty complicated as well, depending on how many pieces you have. And if X, the way you render out polypaint data from XNormal can get a little convoluted as well, constantly turning things on and off again. But so the moon, okay. This is actually going to be metal. Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. All I'm doing here is sort of selecting all the metal regions and then holding Control-Alt, and then you can just go in and sort of remove all these other selections from your initial selection, leaving behind the sort of cutout from all these other pieces. And there we go. Okay. Yeah, obviously I'll need to go in and like separate the tusk and the gems, but for time I'll just move ahead and do it later. Okay, so we have our selection set, and we're good to go. I'll just throw a mask on that just to clean things up. We don't actually need this on. It can just sort of like sit hidden, and we can refer back to what we need to just to quickly select things. But yeah, we're in a stage now where we can actually jump ahead and start texturing this guy in 3D code.